I'm Dr. Julie Pham, founder of Curiosity Based. We help people practice curiosity in the world, starting in the workplace, because that is where we spend most of our waking hours. Curiosity as a practice boils down to self-awareness, relationship building, and clear communication. So join us as we interview leaders to see how they use curiosity at work. Hi, welcome to the Curiosity at Work podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Pham, here today with Amythst Shipman uh, from Food Lifeline. She is the Director of Business Operations, and we're going to get to learn a lot about what practicing curiosity at work looks like in hunger relief organization. Amy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Amy, could you just first explain a bit of what is your organization like? Who works there? What's the is it remote? Is it in person? Yeah, just give us a visual.
Yeah, I love this question. So we are Western Washington's largest hunger relief organization, or Washington State's largest hunger relief organization. So we operate a warehouse, 135,000 square feet in South Seattle. And we're really diverse in our who works in this organization because we have warehouse employees who are picking orders to be distributed out to our 17 counties in Western Washington. And then we also have people who are running our marketing communications. We have people who are grant writers. We have people who are food sourcers. We have people like myself who are sort of keeping the business running behind the scenes. So there's a lot of diversity in sort of the roles that people are filling, which comes with a lot of really amazing creativity and also challenges, of course, in sort of all speaking the same language and getting on the same page about sort of where we're headed and where we've been. So we're at a 120 staff at this time. We're working primarily about 50% of our staff is in a hybrid environment, and then the other 50% is in sort of location based jobs. So they're picking orders in the warehouse, they're driving trucks, their job requires that they're on site or in their vehicle, wherever their work environment may be.
And you also have a really large volunteer base as well, too.
We do, yeah, yeah. Volunteers make up a significant portion of our workforce. So we source large quantities of food, truckload quantities of food, and then we work with over 17,000 volunteers annually to repack those truckload volumes of food into smaller, sort of more manageable household sizes, and then redistribute those out to our partner agency network. And so those volunteers are a huge, huge, huge support to us in breaking that food down, doing quality control, doing food safety checks, making sure that the food that we're handling and distributing out to the agency network and then the people who need that food is going to be safe and high quality and really, really great product for them to feed their families.
Wow, 17,000. I had no idea that it was that many.
A lot, yeah. I think it's the equivalent to like 19 full-time staff members.
Wow. I have volunteered in your warehouse, so I it's fun too. I
It's
think
a good
it's
time.
you
It's
yeah, you
definitely a
make
good time. Yeah, yeah. When else can you, like, see a 2,000-pound tote of oranges or apples or pasta? The kids really like the pasta because you get to use the
Mhm.
scoops.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yes. So, when we talk about and I know in the setting that curiosity is going to be really important. So when we talk about practicing curiosity, we think of it as a practice that boils down to three elements. There's increasing self-awareness, relationship building, and communicating clearly. Could you share an example or a story of how you help foster either that self-awareness, relationship building, or clear communication in your workplace?
Yeah, definitely. I think I probably have a lot of examples. I'll try to focus on one. Um, the thing that I would say about this work in particular that's so unique is that it's um, high level of complexity, and there's a lot of players involved. So it really requires that we are really curious about what the end user wants and needs, and how we get from sort of point A to delivery of service. And so I think one of the things that's been a really important element of practicing curiosity for myself is ensuring that I'm bringing people along with me in my learning. So I don't walk into this environment assuming that I know everything. I think it's really important to like bring people along and share the learnings that I'm having along the way, and ensure that that can be a shared learning experience instead of having that learning in isolation. Um, it also just acknowledges that we're all humans in a system doing the best that we can on any given day to achieve a mission. And if we can all bring our gifts and skills to that setting and do our best, then we can really achieve that end goal. And some days my best is going to be better than others, right? I have a small child at home, and so I'm pretty tired a lot. He keeps me pretty busy, and so some days my best isn't as great as other days. And I think that that's okay to acknowledge, and fostering that sort of realness and curiosity about what is going on for other people in this work environment that I can understand more deeply about them, that is impacting the way that they're showing up at work as well.
Mm. Amy, thank you for sharing that you try to bring people along. And so I know that when in sharing the things that I've learned, I can also get reactions from people about what they've learned that could actually amplify the learning. Could you share an example or a story of when you've brought people along and what you're learning, and then just from that interaction, you got to even learn more?
Yeah, definitely. Um yeah, I mean, I think that happens so frequently, right? I have a lens through which I view my work in the world, and my lens doesn't necessarily track with everybody else. Everybody brings their own perspective, and so I think there's many situations where I've sort of stepped into a problem solving environment. Say we're working just to solve a particular problem with, say, in my current context of my work, a software that people want to work a certain way, and it's not designed to work that certain way. And I believe that there's, a a way that we can sort of ensure that we're getting what we need, but there's this human element of ensuring that we understand what it is that we need, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
and I
so
can imagine. Oh no,
just
keep going.
recently, I was kind of muddling through this with some team members, and um, in this kind of conversation, I realized, oh wait, I don't actually use this software all the time, and so I don't actually even know. Like, I'm having this conversation about process improvements with a vendor who's trying to sell us on their product, and I don't actually use the software that we're talking about. And so, in the middle of that conversation, I was kind of like, okay, I'm actually now realizing that I'm probably not even the most informed person to be having this conversation, because while I have like the decision making power, I'm not actually in a position to say whether or not that's going to work for our organization. And so that was really some really important learning for me about not only practicing curiosity around more deeply understanding what it is that staff need, but also my own like involvement in a particular process. Like, well, then why am I the one that's having this conversation, right? And sometimes that learning is really public and painful. Kind of acknowledging that, like, I'm actually not the right person to be doing this. Let's reverse, regroup, and we'll get back to you about what our next steps will be. So I think those public learnings, or those learnings that happen in community, can oftentimes be the most painful or uncomfortable, but can also be the most valuable and important lessons.
Amy, your example just reminded me of a long time ago how I was heading marketing at an org, and I really wanted to do that kind of BuzzFeed type survey. And then someone on my team was just, Julie, have you ever done one of those surveys? And I was just, no, I guess I don't fill them out myself. And so what you're
So,
saying about, oh, wait a minute, am I actually the best person to be leading this? And that the distinction between being the decision maker
mhm,
versus someone who actually can give input on the experience is,
mhm, mhm,
really
mhm.
insightful. Mhm.
And I think that's so important, as a person in a position of power, as a person in a position of leadership, as a white person in an organization, I have to continually like check my power and check my position and ensure that I'm not taking up space where other people should be, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that has been a really important learning for me over time. And a lot of that is about practicing curiosity about myself, and ensuring that I am showing up with um, in alignment with integrity in my values, and showing up in a way that is not taking up space that other people are better equipped to stand in.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you, Amy. So let's switch to, so you talked about practicing curiosity in your current and with the current people. What about when you are looking for people? What do you do when you're trying to interview people to discern, is this person going to be curious?
I love this question. This is something I've thought a lot about, and something that I've never answered this question in this way, but it's definitely something that's always come up for me. The biggest thing that I'm looking for, I want to see, and I may have used some words that require some asterisks with some letters, but I want to see that someone cares. And it
Mm,
doesn't have to be about our mission. Like if you're super of course there's a certain element of like being invested in the mission that's important, but if you're really passionate about baking sourdough bread and that's something that you've really honed that skill over time, and this is why you like this type of flour and this is why you prefer to weigh on this type of scale or use this type of tool, or I really want to see that you have a passion and interest and ability to exercise curiosity in any capacity, right? And so it could be about anything. Great if it's food related, great if it's hacker related, wonderful if it's food justice related, but um just a way to show I really want to see that people have passion, interest, desire to learn, showing that curiosity, because I think that that is something that's so required in our line of work. Um, is a desire to understand the system and understand how your area of work can support and influence the system, um, and be able to scratch at those things that's like, this doesn't feel right. Like, what's going on here? There's this like desire to find out more when you see that things aren't quite right. That I'm really looking for when screening for applicants.
so is there a question you ask, or how do you get them to talk about something that they really care about that is not related to the job that they're applying for?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that can come out in cover letters. I've seen a lot of people talk about their passions or interests in cover letters. I think that we can ask some questions around the edges of that help us get there. Um, and it doesn't need to be professional, right? It could be personal. I use the sourdough example. It can be a personal passion. Um, and so a little bit, I think we gather that from all parts of that conversation. A lot of times that often comes up in the sort of broad initial question that's like, tell us about yourself. You want to see a spark, or you want to see somebody get really excited about something, anything. Um, so I don't think that there's like a one direct question. But through a line of conversation, I think those things tend to come out.
It's good to know that you actually look at the cover letters and that appeals to you when people even talk about the things that they're passionate about that might not directly be about the work. So, mhm. So now you talked a bit earlier about how it can be hard to practice curiosity, and that could just be because you're tired, right? Or whatever that is. Can you share something about what do you find prevents practicing curiosity in your workplace?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that prevents us from practicing curiosity is time and competing priorities. I oftentimes describe the system that we operate within as a plate of spaghetti. And so everything's kind of intertangled and you can't necessarily see all the parts of the puzzle, and what's going to move or what's going to change when you pull out one of those noodles or try to untangle something. And so it can be really challenging to operate in a system where you're trying things and sometimes you're going to fail. That can be really scary. So I think that there's some fear involved. We're also incredibly fast paced, right? So our day to day works really, really fast, in particular in our warehouse settings, and in our on the road settings. So we've got doc appointments booked out every half hour. every hour through the entire, first half of the day. We've got drivers driving on the road at 3 a.m. And they're probably not off the road until, midday, depending on the shift they're running. And so I think that when there's like all of the immediate needs to get today's job done, it can be challenging to slow down enough to work that really important exercise of practicing curiosity. And then, the other piece I would say is that it's a skill, right? We call it practicing for a reason. It's something that we have to learn how to do. And so I think, we're starting that journey as an organization, of exercising that muscle. And I think there's lots more practice for us in the future. But yeah, I would say time, competing priorities, that just like the knowledge of how to do that, and building that skill are probably the top 3 challenges that we face.
Amy, I appreciate how you said you gave a visual and something that's a very real pressure at your organization for the time and competing priorities, because I think that exists in all organizations. And yet for you, there are literal trucks that need to depart. And if they don't, if there is a slowdown, that will actually affect everyone else. And it'll literally affect people who are hungry too. And so I can imagine how in that it's actually pretty high stakes, and I hadn't thought about that before. So thank you for that visual.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about, so this is my last question for you. What is a resource, something that you go to that inspires curiosity for you?
Mm. I think this isn't this isn't a book that's going to give you the answers, but
And no
I
book does,
have,
by the way. So
sorry.
no book ever gives you all the answers. So
We can over time build the toolkit, right? And all of our resources. But I think my people, I've developed over time a really incredible group of professional and personal support systems. And a lot of them being women, a lot of them being women in operations spaces where we've historically been left out, or boxed out, if you will. And I think that for me, the women that have paved the way before me and taught me everything they know, and um, the really deep connections that I've built in my personal life that, are the people that are able to say the hard things to me. And I'm able to like take a deep breath and swallow that and say, okay, yeah, that is a thing that I do. Or gut check something with them. So I think spending time with the people, in particular women that have just been incredible supports throughout my career, throughout my life, are my greatest resource for sure.
that really resonates with me. Even though I'm a big reader, my favorite kind of learning is actually from other people. It doesn't scale very well because those conversations, those relationships take time, that one-on-one or sometimes group setting. But I think that that actually is it's the source of surprising, the things that surprise me. So
And that makes sense given your work and your research.
Amy, thank you so much for being here with us today. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can reach me at Food Lifeline. I am all over our website. I have an email address that people are welcome to get in touch with me at. I could share that, or I'm not sure if you share that in notes or whatnot, but
We'll share all of that in the notes. So, Amy, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, listeners. Continue to practice curiosity while you are at work and at home in the world.
thank you. Thanks for having me.